All right. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I would be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 4.
I second.
Motion a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. And any audience comments? Seeing no one in the room, and if you're online with Zoom, please use the raise your hand function. About a minute. Seeing none, we'll roll into some general manager's report.
Well, good evening, commissioners.
Well, hello.
Yeah,
Good evening.
I've got a few updates for you on key initiatives and some of our operations. We'll start with the Mount Vernon High School micro hydro construction project. It continues to make progress and it's on schedule, expected to be completed by the end of the month, with operations commencing in May. This week's milestones should include the installation of the charger units and some paving. And I understand that Commissioner Hamburg took a trip up there and didn't get too muddy.
No, not too bad. It was great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we will open up the bids for the W1 pump system replacement project up at Judy Reservoir Water Treatment Plant. We anticipate some competitive bids for this comprehensive upgrade. And the engineer's estimate on that is between $640,000 and $805,000. Looking forward to that one. Some more upgrades up at the water treatment plant. And then legislative update. I'm pleased to report positive movement on Senate Bill 5690, which would require the Department of Transportation to notify utility owners of upcoming projects and pursue federal funding of utility relocation costs, including those related to culvert replacement projects. So that bill is successfully passed out of the House Transportation Committee and is advancing to the House Rules Committee. Senators Mazzal and Loveland are co-sponsoring this important legislation, so which will save our ratepayers money if it goes through. So that's good news.
That's good news.
Yeah, so it's moving right along. And then finally, a facilities update. We have reached a significant milestone in our organizational history tonight. You know what that is?
Last meeting in this building.
Today marks our final Board of Commissioners meeting in this locker room. Yeah, for so much PU district history has unfolded.
For better or for worse?
Yeah, I was
Better
gonna
for-
say.
I've been witness to a lot of it, yeah. So we're scheduled to move into the new facility next Thursday and Friday. I just signed, paid for the deposit with the mover, so we're moving forward.
Standing.
Yeah, so we'll convene on the next meeting, April 22nd in the new locker room. And that's an achievement that we should mark, and it's an important one we should all be proud of. So it's a long time coming. So I welcome any other questions on these updates or anything else you guys want to ask? General Manager?
Thank you.
All right.
All right, let's, ooh, this is exciting. We got our IT tech department update. Alistair.
Yeah.
I'm on the edge of my seat, buddy.
Okay, all right.
Max, I'm gonna lean back.
I'll try to. Good evening and thank you for having me. And we've spent a good portion of our time getting the building ready, obviously, for the move. Nick has done a tremendous amount of work, just trying to get offices set up to prepare everybody to have as comfortable as an experience as possible. So we're looking forward to seeing all the new tools and all the goodies in the new building and not having a podium or a tripod in the middle of the room recording folks. So we're really looking forward to the new building. Before I get into the meat of the update, I want to tell you a bit of an incident that took place. It was the end of April. It was on a Saturday. We received a notice from CrowdStrike that somebody had done a remote execution on an application in the environment. And I want to keep this as vague as possible. Don't want to go into too many details. CrowdStrike took that service offline, prevented the execution from proceeding. We came in and took a look at it. Sunday, just realized, okay, this service was probably something that we need to take a look at some further investigation. CrowdStrike said, well, we stopped the execution, but we really don't see anything notable that took place. Ben did some further investigation, and thank goodness he did. He noticed that somebody was using a headless account, essentially a service account that exists that's not attached to a particular person. And they tried to use that headless account to execute some very nasty scripts. Ben saw that, escalated it up to CrowdStrike, and it kind of sent off a chain reaction. The application owner actually in a few days contacted us specifically to talk about what took place, steps that we needed to go through and mitigate. And fortunately, they came out with a security patch. We were one of several organizations that were attempted to get a hold of. They actually got a hold of one person because they didn't have any detection response like we do with CrowdStrike. So we were fortunate there. The exploit itself was to go in, exfil data, and encrypt everything. Essentially, a classic ransomware type of attack. So we were fortunate in the fact that we have certain things in place, and we prevented it from happening to us. It's kind of cool that we found it in an exploit that was circulated worldwide, was done essentially from Ben doing his due diligence, taking a look at an incident that we noticed or that was contacted, and we kind of ran it up the chain. So it was a really, really good. It's really good that we have the systems that we have in place. With that said, I want to talk about our backup and recovery strategy. We have a fairly good backup system, but now it's time for us to look at maturing our model just a little bit further. Why we have backup is essentially to our business continuity. If we lose something, we are able to go back and retrieve it. We have people that sometimes are working, they'll accidentally delete a file. We'll have on-site backups. We're able to fairly quickly recover that. But we also have critical data that we're storing in places. So in case we have a ransomware incident, if we have a fire or something happens to one of our data centers, that we've got some historical data that we can go back and back that up. And again, it's a critical component to our security strategy. And it's there to help mitigate against those threats. So currently, we're following the 3-2-1 method. Essentially, you have 3 copies of backup data in 2 physically different places, and you have one that you try to put in that's completely, once you make the backup, it's no longer available to anybody on the internet. It's backed up offline. One of the things that we also do internally for us is I ask our key application owners, CityWorks, I ask Vivian who has our financial stuff to actually plug in a removable thumb drive and on a weekly basis or so, put something so that they physically have it available for whatever reason. If our backup data that exists offline is not available to us, just for any host of reasons, I'm trying to make sure we have a number of backups that may take place. The problem with that is our current strategy that we have with our Veeam that does our on-site backups is that it exists in our VM infrastructure as well. So we're using roughly 25% of our storage capacity to put our on-site daily replicated backups. Weekly, we send a big chunk of data out to our 1111 site that's located in the Midwest. The other problem gets to be with that offsite backup, it would take us a tremendously long amount of time to recover anything and get it from there back to here, because if we lose any of our data, we have to kind of start rebuild from scratch, get everything up and running, and then we're transferring that data that exists out there back onto our servers. Additionally, if we suffered some type of incident where it was a ransomware or a virus or something like that, we don't have good mechanisms in place to ensure that that data that exists on our backup in our offsite backup was not also compromised. So we would have to go through a very long process of scanning that information and that data to make sure it's good enough for us to restore from. Now, there are services that exist now that help to mitigate a lot of that through ransomware checking, through AI, a whole lot of that. Also, right now, we're running two separate services. So I've got one piece of software, which is Veeam, which does our on-site backups. And then we have this other service. And so you're managing two totally different systems. So what ultimately I'm looking for is a system that does all of this in one tool, but it also gives us some physical storage that we would be moving the backups to locally in our data center, so that it is existing in a separate volume than sitting on our VM infrastructure. And that way, that backup strategy can grow as well as our data as it starts to grow as well. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, few months, hopefully, is we're going to be looking for some vendors that provide this new backup service for us. We've actually reached out to some other PUDs, some other local entities that are moving and maturing their backup strategy, and we're going to try and find the best solution for us. Hopefully, the cost will actually either be the same or may go down, because we're not dealing with two separate pieces of software, two separate services. We're actually able to combine the service and maybe even get more services as far as like doing the additional ransomware checks, the additional data optimization. And that's where we're going to be going with that. So didn't knock you off our seats,
But you don't need to. Again, the more boring it is, the more better for my team. I just gotta say, we're not looking for excitement. We're gonna Minecraft movie. I want to see that.
yeah. Well, but again, I'm fairly confident in our current strategy. This is just us becoming a more mature organization, and as we're improving our security strategy, I think this is one of the next things that we need to be doing.
Yeah, test and iterate. It's the only way to go in this space, right? We don't even be on the bleeding edge. We just stay on the leading edge. So
yeah, no. This stuff has been this has been proven now, and I think now's our time to step into it.
And I think as you evaluate those options and eventually George and yourself bring it to us, I will tell you what my very first question will be, is you already kind of hit on it, was what is our current cost and versus what is our cost subscription? Is there a subscription-based cost? Is there an upfront cost? What have we invested? There's a lot of differences between those services and what they require, upgrades of your servers, maybe even. So I don't know all the ins and outs, but those are all the dollars will make a lot of difference.
Hopefully it won't it won't affect any of our current server strategy.
Mhm.
These things should be fairly agnostic to what we're utilizing. The upfront costs are, well, from what I've seen in the services that we're looking at,
Mhm.
they're probably going to be the physical hardware that we would need to put into the different server areas, and then just the actual implementation costs. These are subscription models now with these services. So obviously, the more you pay upfront, if you do a 3-year term or a 5-year term, you get the significant savings, but it is an upfront cost.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to some new business. Mark, is this all you? Awesome.
What's number 3 on? Is there a third one on or just the first 2? Only 2?
Yep, just two.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yep, they're both me. So. You guys go first, right?
No.
No, so pitch us on this approval for the architectural design.
Okay. This is originally when we were doing the administrative building, the new administrative building, we thought we wanted to remodel this building and provide 2 spaces, one in back for our crews, so that they had a new proper modern functioning workspace. And when we came time to bid the project for the new building, it looked like we were gonna be a little bit over budget. So we scaled back that project. We scaled back the remodel project here. They were intended to run concurrently. Now that we're in a position where after we got the bids, we know what the costs are gonna be on the new building. We added $500,000 in each of, well, this year and the next 2 years for the remodel of the back part of the building. And those budgets, I don't think they consider the sale of this property as either. So that's potentially another, maybe 2.5 million in revenue or resource coming in that's not contemplated. So right now we're kind of working through the first phase of this. We're just trying to move it along incrementally. That's kind of independent of whatever decisions are made on the north half of the building. So right now we're just looking at design of the separation, construction of the separation. We can figure that how much of it we want to implement when that time comes, but we're kind of taking little bites here at a time.
And this will get us to that point to figure out how much we want to implement construction wise.
Yeah, so this will allow us to permit whatever we need to be done. And if somebody else wants to have something done, it will allow them to permit that as well at their cost or our cost or.
Will this provide us with like reasonable estimates for those separation
Oh, yeah.
line items as well?
Yeah, we'll get a estimate on the construction cost before we go to bid.
And then the other question that I have is what is our total, will you remind me on the capital improvement plan, is it $500,000 this year was what we set aside to work on the separation, or was it 600?
5.
It was 5.
Yeah, total $1.5 million.
And then my only other question, just a technicality, within the actual task order modification exhibit, I would prefer us to refer to this portion of the building as the north portion and not put any names of other says, yes, of any tenants in it. It does reference a potential tenant.
Oh, it does.
And I don't
Okay.
think that
I agree.
in regards to the generator, it says design for new generator for that potential tenant is not included. I just think for the north portion of the building would be adequate.
Sounds good.
All right, step A of phase 1. Get us underway here, so we'll be looking for a motion.
Motion to approve. Back to that. Authorizing the general manager to enter into a contract with Driftmeyer Architects in the amount of $189,300 for design of phase 1.
Nice second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. All right, Mark, let's talk about pipeline replacement change order and budget amendment for North Burlington Pipeline Project.
So I tried to write the memo so that it sheds as much light as possible on this and kind of captures the overall scope and add some detail with some of the budget numbers. And hopefully it communicates, where we're at or the kind of situation we find ourselves in. I do want to highlight that this is an unusual situation. I don't think I've been here before with something like this in front of you. And the memo covers a couple of places where we could have done better, and hopefully there's some solutions in there. At least you're seeing the solutions that we've kind of proposed or that I've proposed. And I just kind of want to go over some of those at this point. I think the biggest cause for this whole thing, I guess, would be the timing and the structure of the change orders. That's what I see. They came late in the project where we couldn't adjust the scale of the project at all. We're just kind of, it's like we had arrived and now here was all this additional cost that we needed to deal with. And we weren't able to scale the project back. And our purchasing policy, the way it's structured, really promotes prompt resolution to these changes. I have $30,000 of authority. George has $120,000, and these changes should have been recognized and dealt with immediately or quicker, so that they didn't come to this level. And it's not just coming to this level; it's the impact on the project and our ability to scale. I want to keep going back to that. We've had to scale projects in other instances, and that would have been a good solution here had we known this impact. And I guess just highlighting that with those purchasing policies, it lets us get into those additional costs quicker and recognize them. So one caveat to the changes too is that I can't take a larger change order like this and break it down into smaller changes to get out of proper oversight. I think obviously dollar amounts at this level, they need proper oversight. They shouldn't be broken out, and that is why we're here. I think that's our responsibility. In hindsight, I think, with the contaminated soil, we probably should have updated the commission sooner to let you know that this was going to be an impact. As it was coming at us, we didn't realize it would be as much of a dollar impact as it was. And unfortunately, it turned out to be more than we thought it would be. On the solution side, or at least moving forward, this has highlighted a bunch of financial things that we can look at. I don't want to get too administratively heavy, but there are some things that we can do to keep a better focus on our budget, a better focus on our project costs, and a better focus on our project budget or what the contractor should be paid. So one of the things that we are going to implement are more frequent project cost assessments. So through our inspection process, our inspector and the contractor, they go over the weekly totals of what has been put in the ground that week. And along with that, we have weekly construction meetings. If we take those two together, I'm going to have our project inspector and the contractor go over the weekly totals and compare them against a burn rate that, what are we burning here? Are we going too fast? How do we get this back in line? And then that will be a standing topic of conversation on the weekly construction meetings to talk about those burn rates And versus specific items of completion, like, we can look at pipe and we can say, okay, here's your pipe, you're going along. It's a pretty good indicator of where we are with everything else in the project, usually except for asphalt. Those, you kind of get the pipe and then you've got another little bump on the asphalt, but usually the pipe starts out and then you'll get asphalt coming in behind it and they'll usually move together a little bit. But that's one thing, just having those conversations, being more focused on those limits and having it a standing topic of conversation at our weekly construction meetings.
May I ask a quick question in regards to burn rate? Are you talking about burn rate, the full contract amount or per line item as well?
Both. Yeah. I think we need to be focusing on the large. I don't care about 2 valves, right? $8,000. I care about 700,000 or, of pipe or, $300,000 worth of asphalt. Those are the big ones yeah. So individual burn item, burn rate and contract total as well. I think, you can kind of get an assessment for where you're at. You say, well, we're about, 50% done. How much money do we have? How much have we spent here? And just.
Yeah, if you don't look at line by line, you may.
Right. We need to talk about it and we need to have prompt resolution of any outstanding cost impacts. That's a big one. And then budget status. So when we sign a contract, our forms require us to put in budget, existing budget, expenses against the budget, remaining total. So we have a pretty clear idea of how much room we have after we sign the contract, how much room we'll have for other administrative tasks like inspection or changes or, what have you. And we do a pretty good job with those. Sometimes we got to tighten up how we use which numbers we're looking at. But we're doing a pretty good job with that. We need a little more uniformity there. But I also want to implement that with our monthly invoices or invoices against purchase orders. So we know where we are in that through that monthly check too, because that'll provide oversight at other levels in the organization as well, to have those printed out and be part of the Laserfiche process when we approve invoices. And then the last thing that this really highlighted, just because it's so close, is that when we are estimating contracts that we're bidding out, we have a list of indirect costs that we associate with them: geotech, inspection, design, archaeology, all that stuff. What we don't include, or what we haven't included historically, is the costs for our crews. So the crew time to install services or hook up all the service lines to the meters, the crew time to tie in the line. We have bid items for those, but it doesn't cover our crew's time to go out there and actually physically do the work. So we're gonna look at those indirect costs and include a percentage that we can include in our budgeting and cost estimating. So I guess just kind of wrapping things up, we're not always going to get it right. I don't like that we're in this position. I'd like to do better. And most often, we're either a little bit high or a little bit low of our target. This is kind of an unusual situation for us. And when we go through budgeting, we try to have tight budgets, and because we don't want to pad our budgets, right? And I hope that there's some understanding that we're going to miss sometimes, right? Not like this, but we're going to miss sometimes. And I want to keep being able to keep those tight budgets as we move forward and not have to pad things.
I have a quick question for the restoration of services and tie-ins, and it says for this project, these costs amounted to $144,856. Where in the budget summary, or would I expect to track that down? Is that our payroll for our employees? that
Yeah.
have been counted, and then what is the other? Is it equipment?
Yeah.
So those two together?
Equipment is in there, equipment, GL vouchers, GL vouchers is tough to track down, but that could be part of it.
Okay,
Definitely the payroll and the inventory.
okay.
And these are work order costs since construction began, so.
Questions and comments and discussion with Mark?
I understand these things happen. Can't say I'm not disappointed. However, this is kind of a two-part, and we have to pay the contractor. Whether or not I agree with amending the capital budget in 425,000 without having some sort of check that we say we need to remove an item. I know that there's a lot of ups and downs and wiggle room because we don't pad, right, our budgeted amounts per project. I'm not sure I'm in favor of doing that. I think that we do need to reevaluate our capital plan and either eliminate or say that we need to reduce our spending by that 425,000 and push something off because we still haven't done a rate study. We don't even know where we're going to be at with the chlorine disinfection project. I just think there's a lot of uncertainty, and I'm not in favor of doing a budget amendment. And if we do, I would like it to be net zero. I say yes, pay the contractor, but overall, I don't approve an increase of $425,000 in our budget for a capital plan for this year.
I guess I'm curious procedurally, what would go into that?
That would be fine. We have our budget document. The bottom line would, I don't know what our annual, but last year was 29 million. I'm not sure what our current one, but so last year we had 26,230,000 in spending against capital. Our budget was 29 million, like 178,000, something like that. So we typically we underspend the bottom line capital budget. So it wouldn't have a huge impact. And if it did, we'd figure it out.
Right, it's more of and I agree on the sliding. Something came in, something goes out. I mean, that's typically I think that's been, and if not actual and implied. From the three of us. It's not as a business unit, we're not saying go make another $500,000 to cover up, we do, that's not how we operate. And so, whereas this is a new expense, so.
Yeah. And I think the way that the budgeting works each year is that whatever was budgeted or has revenue or is left over from the prior year is wrapped up and goes to offset costs for the future year. And so where we do win, those get carried forward, but we don't talk about it.
So yeah, I appreciate the mechanical and tactical comments that Commissioner Hamburg made. I also understand in other conversations that a bell has been rung that cost and complexity compound, right, in your shop and others and across. And I think that can be very useful from a cultural perspective, being the way that we do things. And that this is not just a gee whiz, and math is great. Again, I appreciate the analysis of the cause of error, and then also that this is an expensive lesson that we want to share as broadly and as deeply as possible across the district. And I understand that is an ongoing process, one that I think that we both we can appreciate. There's no bits to be thrown. There's just lessons to be learned.
Yeah, I've been here 6 years and the first one of these I've seen, so let's keep it that way. I would make a motion then to authorize the general manager to execute change order number 1 with Faber Construction in the amount of $743,324.27.
I would say, and do you include the amendment, I mean,
I was not gonna
Not gonna
include
include the amendment?
the capital budget
Okay.
amendment.
The only thing I would, I'm not sure about if there just has to be a understanding that its existing capital budget is gonna be used for this, not that the bottom line is gonna change or anything like that. I don't know if we need to include that sort of language or we're good.
so I wonder if it would be a reallocation of the capital budget opposed to amendment. I don't know what matter, the words that matter here.
From my perspective, you just need to approve the contract change order that you've done.
Okay.
And I think you'll come back and address any changes to the CIP that you want to do, or that you would look for a suggestion, and you can put that at the next meeting or any future meetings to do that. But we won't amend it, we won't roll it forward or change what we've done.
Right.
$15.5 million is the
Right.
2025 budget key number, and so if you want us to look at those projects again and make any changes.
So yeah, if it,
Or not on.
if it needs reconciliation, we can make.
Then we
that-
can make it,
Take that
okay.
action. at
I'd
the
like
time.
to make a recommendation.
Okay,
to you.
Okay, excellent.
so there is a motion to approve the change order.
I second the approval of the change order.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the change order. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, the motion carries. Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, there's some general information on pipeline relocation and Cedardale Road project.
I do
Oh.
have a question on that one. Oh, is that just for information? Are we actually?
Yeah.
Oh,
Question. I'm just gonna read it to you. Yeah, I'm just gonna go over the project briefly because the bid amount was under the 120,000. We don't come to you with a contract. So this is another project that is to facilitate a washdot culvert relocation. They're gonna be opening up where Maddox Creek meets Cedardale, and then pretty much making that a bridge type area from my understanding, and which will go, so the creek will have more room to go under the freeway and then down south. I actually have a meeting next week when WashDOT is supposed to kind of go over their latest iteration of the project. The Cedardale and the Henson Road projects have kind of been on hold from their perspective. So we've been trying to move ahead, just knowing that their plans could change. So for Cedardale, we plan to go to the east and just put our line in 3 private easements so that we're just out of the way and it won't matter what configuration they end up with. So we're going about close to 500 feet. It'll just be a quick relocation. And I think sort of the grants you were talking about that the legislature is coming up with, this is going to be funded by one of those. It was the most current one, the PUD relocation utility grants. So this entire project should be pretty much covered, that grant. So the project will be happening starting the end of April. And it has to be done by June 30th because that's when the grant expires. Hopefully this one will be easier than some of our more recent projects. It's little, so it should be theoretically.
And I'm just curious, it seems like we've been really lucky or aligned, and I'll take either or both with WashDOT lately on this as compared to some. Is just the North region more on the ball? Cause when I talk to my other commissioners around the state where they feel like they're constantly battling WashDOT, but that doesn't seem to be our experience.
I don't know.
Sometimes we get lucky and we'll take it.
It's, I mean, in terms of facilitate or kind of communicating with them, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a little bit of a struggle, but I think we have some local reps that I'm pretty, we work with continuously. So, 20 has been a bit of a disaster, but I think we kind of know the reps better because of that. And so hopefully that will work in our favor in the future, so.
Well, we'll stay good at it because it's working for us. So thank you.
Okay.
Great.
As far as the bids coming in, where did they come in for like engineering?
The estimate was 108,000 and Flowline is the contractor. They came in at 78, so 30 less about.
Wow.
So now we have too much money for the grant, but we can pay for our crew to go in and cut and cap the line that's actually active in Cedardale right away.
Okay.
So we're gonna use the additional money to do that.
Excellent. Great.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Judy Reservoir info's in there. Other commissioner comments?
I just really appreciate Mark and Carl for providing me with such a great tour of the micro hydro this last Friday. It was really great to see in person and get to see some new flow meters and valves and just, yeah, made me happy.
Joe?
Nothing from me.
All right, well, Nick,
Sorry, I think I missed the vote here. I didn't hear. Don't exactly know how this works. But I wanted to comment on some of.
you want to just come up for the sake of the posterity here? I'll see my commissioner comments on my friend Nick.
Some of you may have remembered some of my dealings here, but my good neighbor, Mike Swain there had a $4,000 water bill. We talked about it a few times. Thought we kind of had come to a plan. They sent him another $3,900 water bill on top of the first one. We thought we had a payment plan. And we agreed that we just kind of let it ride because we didn't know how to handle it. Is the impression I got on your end. But they sent letters of collection and I got all this third hand and just finished. He died last week. Now I'm getting all this information and I just thought I would try to express my discontentment, I guess, with the way it ended up being handled. And then I got another $200 bill, which I assume is interest or something. I just go. Over several months, we went over this. I thought it was handled. It didn't seem like it got handled very well. So.
Well, sounds like some wires might have got crossed, so we'll definitely follow up and find out. The discussion that was had and commitments were made, we want to make sure that we follow up on those.
And I don't feel like it did happen, but it's done.
There's feedback.
Yeah, life goes on. So one other thing I had was, it does seem difficult to deal with sometimes, this department to me. I considered trying to get a hydrant put in and I met with, yeah, no, that's the state right away. Yeah, I don't think we can do that. I don't know. To me, you guys should be here to help us get where we want to go, and we're willing to pay for a hydrant. That betters the community. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it should be met with, yeah, I don't know. You know, it should, well, let's work on that. To me, that's what I'd like to see. I don't know. Maybe I'm unreasonable, but
No, I don't know. Appreciate the feedback, Nick.
all right,
Thank you.
that's all I got.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, well, we will adjourn at 5:13.